You see this? You kids might not know what this is, but this is an ancient relic known as a magazine. Magazine? I have no clue. But this is one called the Philadelphia Trumpet. For those who do not know, it is some right-wing Christian magazine that I have right here for some reason. The article we will be responding to today is on page 14 of their latest issue, or at least the only issue I have in my possession. I don't know if it's their latest or not. Entitled, "What Will Happen to Religious Freedom?" Let's read. Actually, before we do, let's look at this cover real quick. It looks like Donald Trump is incredibly displeased that his name is on this magazine. He looks angry, or annoyed, or whatever it is. He doesn't look happy. This image actually is decently drawn, though, and while I do disagree with the message, I will admit whoever drew this does have some pretty decent talent. What will happen to religious freedom? I don't know, that's why I'm asking you. A radical secularist movement has been attacking America's first freedom for decades. Now the new president-elect is vowing to fight back. Will he succeed? By Andrew Miller. You think he's related to Frank Miller by any means? Just wondering. Also, for those who are wondering who Andrew Miller is, the answer is I have no idea. When I typed in his name, I got a baseball player. So I decided I'd type in his name plus trumpet. And then, 4 results down, I got the baseball player again. Going to his Wikipedia page, hitting Control F and typing trumpet, by the way, gets you no results. So this is clearly a different Andrew Miller, so don't any of you baseball fans get confused. Now, the first about 5 paragraphs go into detail about what religious freedom is, and there's nothing really to object to in that, so I'm going to be skipping to around the 6th paragraph. Around the bottom middle of the first page I'm reading this off of, page 14 of the actual magazine. So let's actually read what they're saying. Despite the lip service paid to religious freedom each January, however, most Americans take religious freedom for granted because the general population doesn't understand what America's founders meant when they wrote the separation of church and state. A radical secularist movement has convinced millions of Americans that freedom of religion actually means freedom from religion. I've heard that distinction made before, and while I will admit there's some difference, freedom of religion means you can practice your religious beliefs, you just can't, base any public decisions off of them, and you cannot make any laws or business decisions off of them that will affect a majority of people, or even a minority of people, unfairly. Freedom from religion means religion doesn't exist. So clearly, you guys don't even know the difference, let alone you guys think that millions of people are confused about the difference when you don't know it. No wonder no one else does. Building on this premise, government officials have dismissed religious concerns as irrelevant and used the power of the state to concur Christians to act contrary to their faith, such as subsidizing abortion procedures and participating in homosexual wedding ceremonies. Aw, is it so hard to be a bigot in today's modern society? Oh, it's so sad, sad little bigot. Oh, I'm just so sorry for you. Oh, you're so adorable, huh? In recent years, this erosion of religious freedom has advanced rapidly. While President-elect Donald Trump has promised to protect the rights of Christian denomination from this secular assault. Assault! That's totally not propaganda, by the way. Are atheists walking around punching Christians in the face? I don't think so. So please, give me an example of real assault, or are you just the second coming of Joseph McCarthy or something? Many wonder if he can and will actually restore religious freedom. Okay, let's get something out of the way quick. What these people want is not religious freedom. They want theocracy. Theocracy is the exact opposite of religious freedom, because in theocracy, there's only one religion, and that is the state's religion. And for those who are thinking, oh, Ephrom, Josine, they don't want theocracy, keep watching this video and listening to what this magazine is saying. And tell me there aren't some theocratic ideas in there, at the very least. Whatever twists and turns American politics take in the months ahead, however, the infallible word of the Bible reveals that religious persecution against true Christians is going to intensify. Fight over abortion. Yeah, that's their second section, fight over abortion. During the 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency, the federal government spearheaded the greatest assault on religious freedom in modern American history. Instances and examples of this assault are abundant. They're so abundant, we had to make them up. To take one example, the Affordable Care Act. Why? Enacted on March 23, 2010, mandated that employers provide employees with contraceptives, abortion-inducing drugs, and sterilization, even though several U.S. religious organizations believe that contraceptives and abortion are sin. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I thought the only actual religious association that believed that the majority of birth control was sin was Catholicism, which is Catholics, or which are Catholics. So, from my understanding, don't other religions just say that you can only not get abortions and everything else is fine? And that's ignoring religious institutions that believe that abortions are fine, but that's another story. The Obama administration refused to exempt religious institutions from its sweeping healthcare mandate. Okay, I didn't notice this when I first read the article before I started recording. However, this is something I'm noticing now. They claim that the Obama administration refuses to make exceptions. However, in the very next paragraph, you can pause and read if you don't believe me. Or heck, find this, I guarantee you can find the article online somewhere. If not, you could probably find a copy of the magazine online or on eBay or somewhere. But in the very next paragraph, they say this. In response, the Pentecostal business owners of Hobby Lobby and an organization of Catholic nuns challenged the Affordable Care Act in court. The Supreme Court granted Hobby Lobby a religious exception. So, the Obama administration refused to give any exceptions, except for these companies that got exceptions from the Supreme Court, which is arguably higher than the president. The case in question is called Burwell versus Hobby Lobby Store Incorporated, and is the second to last case in volume 573 of the U.S. Supreme Court, and claims that it allows closely held for-profit corporations to be exempted from a law its owners religiously object to if there is a less restrictive means of further law interest according to provisions of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So, the Obama administration didn't have any exceptions, except for this big exception. Okay, I skipped a little bit because, it's just them saying that the Hobby Lobby founder is supporting Donald Trump. Here's a quote from Donald Trump. The Christians are being because we have nobody to represent the Christians. And Barack Obama, the guy they're demonizing, he's a practicing Christian. Also, I don't know if I said where this quote is from, so I'm just going to say it. I don't care if I already said it. Said Mr. Trump in a May 2015 interview with the Christian Broadcasting Network. Now, I want you all to remember that name, the Christian Broadcasting Network, or CBN. If you do not know what that is, look it up, but it's basically an evangelical Christian network ran by Pat Robertson. Remember that name. It will be important later on. Believe me, if I run and win, I will be the greatest representative of the Christians they've had in a long time. In about, what, 8 years? Do you guys remember how evangelical of a Christian George Bush was? Anybody? You remember the guy who claimed that God told him to run? Anybody? The man who used government funding to fund churches? You guys remember? The man who made abstinence education for sex ed far more common than it was under Clinton and has been under Obama. Remember? The man who on his first day tried to cut funding of pro-abortion groups. Remember? And I'm all getting this off of one website, by the way. It's inquirersjournal.com. So don't think I'm like jumping between 50 different websites trying to find specific examples. This is all taking me like a minute to find. And this wasn't like 200 years ago or anything. George W. Bush was the president just before Barack Obama. He was one president ago. Almost two, but as of right now, one. The endorsing homosexuality section of this article just goes into detail about the already well-known stories of the wedding cake things and the photography things and things like that you can easily look up. And I didn't have much objection to the way of telling the story this time. I did have objection to how this kind of sounds pro-discrimination in a few areas, though. Which I'd argue is evil, but still. However, there is one section of this article near the end I want to read to you, because it completely shows the stupidity of Andrew Miller, the writer of this article. The people being prosecuted weren't denying service to customers because they were homosexual, but out of religious conviction against participating in same-sex weddings. You only have a same-sex wedding if you're homosexual. Idiots. There's also this quote from a bit earlier. A baker in Colorado, a florist in Washington, and a photographer in New Mexico have all been convicted of violating state anti-discrimination laws by refusing to offer same-sex couples the same service they offer to heterosexual couples. Yeah. Because that's discrimination. Violating human rights. Beat religious rights. Hate to inform you. Anti-discrimination is more important than religion. Their controlling sermons section has another couple very interesting quotes as well. Okay, the first thing I want to point out, though, is I want you to look at this page. You see the giant red text? That's interrupting two of the paragraphs. Look, it's interrupting two of the paragraphs. Allow me to read to you what it's saying. While it is still too early to know how the Trump administration will deal with issues involving freedom of religion, this much is sure. A fight is brewing between evangelical Christians and radical secularists over a range of issues. Now, I'm going to read to you a quote from near the end of the first page. Well, actually, I don't really think I need to, considering how that's literally everything in this page, and in this page, and in this page. All 3 pages of this article are saying exactly that. in different words. So tell me, why did you feel the need to interrupt your article with giant red text basically summarizing your article? It mentions this Massachusetts law. Now allow me to read it to you. Places of public accommodation may not discriminate against or restrict a person from service because of the person's gender identity. Even a church that could be seen as a place of public accommodation if it holds a secular event, such as a spaghetti supper, that is open to the general public. Now, how often do churches, aka religious institutions, hold secular events exactly? Apparently enough for them to complain about this law. Massachusetts also makes it a crime to discriminate against individuals who are identifying as transgender by refusing to use their gender pronouns. Thus, a Massachusetts church could be prosecuted if one of its members won't refer to a man with female pronouns during a church spaghetti dinner. Now, I want you all to focus on the word refuse there, because that's a very important word here. Refuse. Now, this means that it's more than likely legal for you to mistake a man as a woman if that man is identifying as a woman or that woman's identifying as a man or whatever their pronouns are. You just can't refuse to use them and have to use them the next time you see them. I don't see how that's that big of a deal, but okay. And even then, again, I have to stress this. How often do churches have private events? Or public events? Don't churches usually have religious events? That's why they're churches? Why would they even be holding secular public events to begin with? Okay, then there's this quote. So-called anti-discrimination laws across America have subverted freedom of religion and freedom of speech in a bid to give homosexuals and transgenders freedom from being offended. Hey, you guys remember CBN, that network they mentioned earlier? Well, CBN has said some things that offend a good amount of gays and transgenders. Why haven't they been shut down? Once again, Pat Robertson, the man who I believe owns CBN, runs a show called The 700 Club. That's been on for 50 years! The 700th Club's first episode was on April 1st, 1966. If we are really limiting freedom of speech for Christians, why hasn't that show been shut down by now? Answer: because we aren't! The absurdity of this new religious freedom should be obvious. There probably isn't an opinion in existence that couldn't offend somebody. Should businesses be banned from serving alcohol at events open to the public because that offends Muslims? Should atheist groups be banned from criticizing religion in public since that offends Christians? So, being forced to be respectful to people equals being banned from saying any criticism of it in public, even though you're usually a private religious organization as it is. Okay, and the last one is the part about persecution. And this one had something that confused me. I'm going to read you the quote right now. Regardless of what political analysts may say, however, Jesus Christ prophesies that at the end of time, just before his return to earth, his followers will be persecuted for his belief. So why are you worried about this? All this is doing is causing the world to end faster. And you guys are going to go up to heaven or whatever, while people like me, the secular atheists, are going to die and probably burn in hell for all eternity, according to you people. You guys will win if you are right. Those fake religious persecution laws are just going to make it so you win faster. What is your issue with winning faster? Is my question. I'm Cifro Joe, and good night.